you will have a high tenant turnover. Now, the greatest enemy to an investor is vacancy. Because once you have a vacancy, that demands everything you pay out of your own pocket. So you don't want that to happen frequently. So it's always a tension between the two strategy. All right. Okay. So again, these are all principles. I repeat, I think 7-8 times already. Some of you say fed up. I keep saying that this is a principle. This is not sharing experience. This is just sharing principles. Investment principles. Improvement strategy. Improvement strategies. Now there are 2 sub-points here. Now, sub-point number 1, later we will discuss when we discuss the GIC case study. So we will skip point number 1. We just go straight to point number 2. Point number 2, asset-rich companies. Now you can be owning just one warehouse, and then you're operating your business, and you're considered asset-rich. Because most businesses, they do not operate from their own real estate. Because most of the businesses, they need cash flow, so they don't want to be asset rich and then cash poor, right? Okay, but there are still businesses that own real estate. That means they punch above their weight. They operate out of a real estate that is 3 times bigger than their business turnover. The business value, maybe the business value is not so high but then they actually buy real estate that has got a higher value. Okay, so example, again, just another example to explain this principle. I know of people. Okay, actually, this is my own siblings and my older brothers. They have been a subcontractor for very long time, 30 over years. All right, so basically they are at the tail end of construction. They come in, they install certain wood paneling for a certain reason. Okay, that one is very scientific. Because the last time when I told this story in details, and then some of the salesperson start to contact me and wanted to contact my brothers and all that. So I never respond. So then I realized that I made a mistake. I should not describe my brother's business. All right, especially when I mentioned that they want to retire. All right, so okay, but anyway, the business, the contract work actually involved installing certain wood paneling and then a certain imported product into the building. So it's at the tail end of the construction process, but they are highly lucrative. Now, so what happened now is that they have a assembly process that is done in Singapore. All right, the finished products is actually imported. Then they just install. But there are certain wood paneling need to be assembled in Singapore. So they need warehouse space. They don't need factory. They need warehouse space because the painting will be on site and painting will be at the property itself. But the assembly, a bit of knocking, all right, will be done at the warehouse. So I think you do know that warehouse, they have restriction on painting, on soldering, on welding, soldering, and all that. So, but the wood paneling, very simple assembly process, so they can use warehouse. Okay, so some 20 years ago, they decided that they don't rent warehouse anymore. They want to own the warehouse, and their strategy is they actually own 3 times more than what they need. So they only use 1/3 of the warehouse for their own business. The other 2/3, they rented to a shipbuilding company. Okay, so now you see the picture. So they are asset-rich company, and just beginning of this year, my brother told me, finally we sold the warehouse. He said, hey, the buyer offer to lease back to us. We said, no lah, we are staying here until the lease end. We are not going to continue already. All right, because why? They are not selling the business because it's strictly speaking a subcontract. So they can't sell the business because if they want to retire. So if they sell the business and then whoever buy over the business will want them to operate the business. So this is a question I asked them. I thought you can sell the company. They said no, they can't sell the company. So if they don't do, they will just basically shut down. All right. So at the end of the day, they make a lot of money from real estate. Actually, of course, they are in this particular subcontract business for 30 years. So I can't say that they make more money from real estate than their core business. But real estate actually give them a lot of profit. Just sitting there, just operate their own business, they make a lot of money from real estate. So what is this improvement strategy? So when they sell, they have to sell at a discounted price because the warehouse is very old already. All right. So the new buyer took over. They will then do a retrofitting. All right. So they offer to rent back to the seller at a higher rent. Because why? Because the seller will be renting a retrofitted, all right, a renovated and retrofitted property. So naturally, they will have to pay higher. All right. So when they sell lower because the property is old. When they rent back, all right, lease back, they have to lease at a higher rent. Okay. So for the buyer, the yield become very high because your retrofitting cost is not added accounting. In terms of accounting, your retrofitting cost, your renovation cost is not added to the purchase price. So the purchase price remain the low price. And then the rent is now increased up to 10 to 15%, 10 to 15%. So on the book, they can show their investors, whether they are public listed or whether they are a REIT, they can show their investors that after we buy this property, our yield improves. They call it yield accretion, right? Okay, so this is another strategy. So now this is not too far-fetched for individual investors. So because why my brother and his other directors, they started as investors also, right? Arbitrage will be, example, if you buy enough warehouses, let's say you buy 10 warehouses this way, you can put the 10 warehouses, their businesses all together, and you can turn it into a REIT. All right, the process is called securitization. Means that now you are trading IPO already. All right, so you are selling your stocks to the public